Before GPS, before automation, before anyone cared about efficiency, men dragged these iron monsters into the wilderness and bent entire forests to their will. These weren't machines, they were weapons, and somehow the world completely forgot they ever existed. 10 mechanical beasts from the 1980s that chewed through timber like it was nothing and then vanished without a trace. Let's bring them back. Number 1. Ponsse S20 Forwarder. The Ponsse S20 stands as one of the most important yet least remembered forwarders of the early 1980s. Developed at a time when modern cut-to-length logging was still finding its footing, the S20 represented Ponsse's early belief that timber should be carried, not dragged. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, much of the world still relied on skidders and cable systems, especially in rough terrain. The S20 challenged that norm by proving that a heavy, purpose-built forwarder could work effectively even in demanding Scandinavian forests. Introduced around 1980, the S20 was large, rugged, and mechanically conservative. It featured a heavy welded steel frame, 6-wheel configuration, and a payload designed for large-diameter logs rather than pulpwood. Unlike later Ponsse machines, operator comfort was not the primary design goal. The cab was basic, noise levels were high, and controls were mostly mechanical or simple hydraulic levers. But what the S20 lacked in comfort, it made up for in sheer durability. One of the defining characteristics of the S20 was its crane and bunk design, which prioritized lifting power over reach speed. This made it ideal for selective extraction in uneven terrain, where stability mattered more than cycle time. Contractors working in Finland and Sweden appreciated how the S20 reduced soil disturbance compared to skidding, especially during wet seasons when ground damage could halt operations entirely. Production numbers were limited. Estimates suggest fewer than 50 units were built. This small run is a major reason the S20 is often forgotten today. As Ponsse rapidly refined its designs, lighter and more efficient models such as the S15 and later Buffalo series overshadowed the S20. Many S20 units were eventually scrapped or cannibalized for parts, leaving very few surviving examples. Historically, the S20 matters because it helped validate the forwarder harvester system that now dominates global forestry. It was not a commercial blockbuster, but it proved that purpose-built forwarders were the future. Without machines like the S20 absorbing early-generation failures and lessons, modern low-impact forestry might have taken far longer to mature. Number 2. Valmet 890 Forwarder. The Valmet 890 Forwarder represents an era when forestry manufacturers were still deciding how big a forwarder should be. Developed in the late 1970s and widely used into the 1980s, the 890 was designed for high payload capacity and long extraction distances, particularly in Nordic forests with rolling terrain and poor road access. Unlike compact thinning forwarders that would appear later in the decade, the Valmet 890 was unapologetically heavy. Its engineering philosophy favored mass, traction, and mechanical simplicity over finesse. The machine typically featured a 6-wheel drive layout, a powerful diesel engine sourced from Valmet's industrial lineup, and a reinforced load frame capable of handling large sawlogs. Operators appreciated the 890's stability under load, especially when hauling full bunk loads over uneven ground. While ground pressure was higher than later designs, the machine excelled in conditions where lighter forwarders struggled with traction or durability. This made it popular in clear-cut operations during a period when environmental restrictions were far less strict than today. The cab and controls reflected 1980s norms: minimal insulation, basic seating, and hydraulic levers requiring physical effort. There were no onboard computers, no load-sensing hydraulics, and no electronic monitoring. Everything was mechanical, which also meant field repairs were straightforward, an important advantage in remote logging areas. The reason the Valmet 890 faded into obscurity is largely due to technological transition. By the mid to late 1980s, forestry began shifting toward lower ground pressure machines with better weight distribution and improved ergonomics. Valmet itself moved toward more refined forwarder concepts, eventually influencing designs that would later be carried under the Komatsu Forest brand. Today, the 890 survives mainly in archival photos, research papers, and a few restored examples. It is rarely celebrated, yet it played a crucial role in proving that high-capacity forwarders could replace skidders in large-scale operations. The Valmet 890 stands as a reminder that progress often begins with heavy, imperfect machines that push boundaries before refinement takes over. Number 3. Timberjack 450C Skidder. The Timberjack 450C was one of the most recognizable rubber-tired skidders of the 1980s, yet it has largely disappeared from modern forestry discussions. Built during a period when skidding still dominated timber extraction in North America and parts of Europe, the 450C represented the peak of traditional skidder design before forwarders took over many operations. The 450C was designed for raw pulling power. Its articulated frame, heavy axles, and powerful engine allowed it to drag massive log bunches through mud, snow, and steep terrain. Equipped with a mechanical or hydraulic winch, the machine excelled in selective felling operations where logs had to be pulled uphill or through dense stands. Unlike forwarders, skidders like the 450C caused significant ground disturbance. Deep ruts, soil compaction, and damaged regeneration were common side effects. At the time, however, productivity and reliability mattered more than environmental impact. Contractors valued the 450C because it worked in conditions where other machines failed, particularly in mountainous or swampy forests. The cab was Spartan. Noise, vibration, and operator fatigue were accepted realities of skidder work in the 90s. Yet Timberjack's reputation for build quality meant the 450C often stayed in service for decades, rebuilt multiple times rather than replaced. What ultimately pushed the 450C into obscurity was not failure, but changing forestry philosophy. As cut-to-length systems gained popularity and environmental regulations tightened, skidders lost favor. Timberjack itself shifted focus toward harvesters and forwarders, leaving machines like the 450C as relics of an older extraction method. Today, the 450C is remembered mainly by veteran operators and collectors. It symbolizes a transitional moment, the end of brute force logging and the beginning of precision forestry. Number 4. Rottne Snoken 780, 810. The Rottne Snoken 780 and 810 models were among the most innovative yet underappreciated forest machines of the early 1980s. Built in Sweden, these machines were designed primarily for thinning operations, where maneuverability, visibility, and low stand damage were more important than raw power. Snoken, meaning the snake, was an apt name. These machines featured compact frames, articulated steering, and crane placement that allowed the operator to weave through dense stands with minimal tree damage. Unlike many early harvesters, the Snoken was conceived from the ground up as a one-operator solution, integrating cutting, processing, and short-distance forwarding capabilities. The 780 was the earlier model, while the 810 introduced incremental improvements in hydraulic performance and stability. Both relied on mechanical simplicity rather than electronics, making them reliable but physically demanding to operate. Operators had excellent visibility for the time, a major advantage when working in selective thinning environments. What made the Snoken special was its philosophy, not its size. Rottne focused on preserving future crop trees long before sustainability became a marketing term. This approach influenced later harvester design across Scandinavia. The reason these machines are forgotten today is scale. Production numbers were limited, and later Rottne models grew larger, more powerful, and computerized. As forestry industrialized, compact thinning machines were often replaced by multi-role harvesters. Despite this, the Snoken series deserves recognition as a conceptual ancestor of modern thinning harvesters. It proved that careful design could reduce forest damage while maintaining productivity, an idea that now defines modern forestry worldwide. Number 5. Kockums SMV21 Forest Tractor and Conversion Platform. The Kockums SMV21 occupies a unique place in forestry history, not because it was a perfect machine, but because it was a foundation. Throughout the late 1970s and well into the 1980s, the SMV21 served as a base platform for an entire generation of converted forest machines at a time when fully purpose-built harvesters and forwarders were still rare and expensive. Originally designed as a heavy-duty tractor for industrial and forestry use, the SMV21 featured a rigid frame, powerful diesel engine, and robust driveline capable of surviving extreme abuse. Logging contractors and small manufacturers quickly realized its potential. By adding cranes, grapples, processing heads, or bunks, the SMV21 could be transformed into a forwarder, processor, or even an early harvester. This adaptability made it extremely popular across Scandinavia, the UK, and parts of continental Europe. In the early 1980s, many forestry operations simply could not afford factory-built harvesters. The SMV21 filled that gap. Workshops fabricated custom subframes and hydraulic systems, creating machines tailored to local forest conditions. While these conversions lacked standardization, they allowed mechanized logging to expand rapidly without waiting for OEM solutions. From an operator's perspective, the SMV21 was crude but dependable. Controls were heavy, visibility was limited, and ergonomics were basic. Yet the machine was easy to understand mechanically. Breakdowns could often be fixed on site, an essential trait in remote logging areas. This reliability earned the SMV21 a reputation as a machine that would always get you home. The reason the SMV21 faded from memory is simple: industrial evolution. By the mid to late 1980s, manufacturers like Ponsse, Valmet, and Timberjack began offering dedicated machines that outperformed conversions in efficiency, safety, and comfort. As these newer designs became affordable, SMV21 conversions were retired, scrapped, or dismantled for parts. Historically, the SMV21 matters because it accelerated mechanization during a critical transition period. It represents a hands-on era when forestry innovation happened in workshops, not corporate R&D centers. Without machines like the Kockums SMV21, the leap from chainsaws to modern harvesters would have taken far longer. Number 6. OSA FMG0470 Lillebror Thinning Harvesters. The OSA FMG0470, commonly nicknamed Lillebror, Swedish for little brother, was one of the earliest forest machines designed specifically for commercial thinning, not final felling. Introduced in the early 1980s, it challenged the prevailing belief that harvesters had to be large and heavy to be productive. At the time, most mechanized harvesting equipment was oversized for thinning operations. Large machines damaged residual trees, compacted soil, and were inefficient in dense stands. The 0470 Lillebror was a deliberate counter-design. It was compact, light, and agile, with a small crane and simple harvesting head optimized for pulpwood-sized stems. The machine's engineering emphasized maneuverability over speed. Short wheelbase, articulated steering, and low overall weight allowed it to navigate narrow thinning corridors. While production output was lower than full-size harvesters, the Lillebror dramatically reduced stand damage, a critical advantage for forest owners focused on long-term yield. Technologically, the Lillebror was basic even by 1980 standards. Hydraulics were straightforward, electronics were almost non-existent, and operator comfort was minimal. But this simplicity meant reliability. Many units ran for years with minimal downtime, and repairs were easily handled without specialized diagnostic tools. The 0470's limitations were equally clear. It struggled with large diameter trees, lacked power for steep terrain, and was economically viable only in thinning operations. As the decade progressed, manufacturers began producing mid-sized harvesters that could handle both thinning and final felling, reducing the need for highly specialized machines. As a result, the Lillebror quietly disappeared from production. Few were preserved, and most were scrapped. Once larger, more versatile harvesters became available. Despite this, the OSA FMG0470 deserves recognition as a concept pioneer. It proved that thinning deserved its own machine category and directly influenced later compact harvesters used worldwide today. Modern thinning harvesters owe much of their design philosophy to this forgotten little machine. Number 7. Gremo TT12 Forwarder. The Gremo TT12 was never meant to dominate the global forestry market, and that is precisely why it is often forgotten. Produced in the early to mid-1980s, the TT12 was aimed squarely at independent contractors who needed a reliable, affordable forwarder without unnecessary complexity. Gremo's design philosophy was radically different from larger OEMs. Instead of proprietary systems, the TT12 used widely available industrial components, including commonly sourced diesel engines and hydraulics. This made maintenance easier and significantly reduced downtime in remote areas where dealer support was limited. The TT12 was a small to medium forwarder, ideal for thinning and light final felling. Its payload capacity was modest, but its balance and traction were excellent for its size. Operators valued the machine's predictable handling and mechanical honesty. Nothing was hidden behind electronics or software. Cab comfort was basic but functional. Visibility was good, controls were logical, and while noise and vibration were present, they were acceptable by 1980s standards. Importantly, the TT12 was forgiving. New operators could learn quickly without risking catastrophic mechanical failure. Why then did the TT12 disappear from mainstream memory? The answer lies in industry consolidation. As forestry mechanization matured, contractors increasingly favored larger brands with extensive dealer networks. Gremo's limited production numbers and regional focus meant its machines were gradually overshadowed. Yet the TT12's influence persists. Many modern small forwarders still follow the same principles: simple hydraulics, serviceability, and contractor-focused design. The TT12 represents a time when forestry machines were built by people who actively worked in the forest, not by marketing departments. Number 8. Valmet 701. Small harvesters. The Valmet 701 was part of a quiet but important movement in early 1980s forestry. The search for a true small harvester capable of thinning without destroying the future forest. Valmet, already a respected industrial manufacturer, experimented with compact harvesting solutions to complement its larger machines. The 701 was built with thinning as its primary mission. Smaller than Valmet's main harvesters, it used a lighter crane and harvesting head designed for small diameter stems. This allowed it to operate efficiently in young stands while minimizing damage to remaining trees. Mechanically, the 701 reflected Valmet's industrial roots. Components were robust, hydraulics were reliable, and the machine was designed for longevity rather than speed. Like many early harvesters, operator comfort was secondary to functionality, but visibility and control placement were thoughtfully arranged. The Valmet 701 struggled commercially for one reason: timing. It arrived just as multi-purpose harvesters were becoming viable. Contractors increasingly wanted machines that could thin one day and clear-cut the next. The specialized nature of the 701 limited its appeal. By the late 1980s, Valmet's forestry division evolved toward more versatile designs, and the 701 quietly exited production. Few were preserved, and even fewer are remembered today. Yet historically, the 701 is significant. It represents an early acknowledgement by a major manufacturer that forestry needed machine diversity, not just bigger equipment. Its DNA can be seen in today's dedicated thinning harvesters used across sustainable forestry operations worldwide. Number 9. Volvo BM SM868 Forwarder. The Volvo BM SM868 is one of those machines that was so common during its working life that it eventually faded into the background of forestry history. Produced in the late 1970s and widely used throughout the 1980s, the SM868 was a true workhorse forwarder, relied upon daily across Scandinavia, the UK, and parts of Europe. At its core, the SM868 reflected Volvo BM's industrial philosophy: strength, reliability, and simplicity. It featured a robust articulated chassis, mechanical drivetrain, and a forwarder layout that was still being standardized across the industry. Unlike experimental machines of the era, the SM868 was not radical, and that was its greatest strength. Contractors trusted it because it behaved predictably under load and survived long operating hours with minimal downtime. The forwarder's payload capacity made it well suited for pulpwood and mixed assortments. While not optimized for low ground pressure by modern standards, its weight distribution and traction were effective for the forestry practices of the time. Many operators preferred the SM868 in winter logging, where its stability on snow and frozen ground made it dependable. Operator comfort was basic but acceptable for the era. The cab offered limited insulation, mechanical controls, and minimal ergonomics, but visibility to the bunk and crane was good. Importantly, the SM868 was easy to service. Parts availability through Volvo's industrial network ensured long service life, and many machines remained operational well into the 1990s. So why is the SM868 considered forgotten? Because it was replaced incrementally, not dramatically. As forestry machines became more specialized and computerized in the late 1980s and 1990s, the SM868 was quietly retired rather than celebrated. It didn't represent a technological leap, it represented stability. Historically, the SM868 played a crucial role in normalizing forwarder-based extraction. It helped shift forestry away from skidders and cable systems by proving that forwarders could be reliable, productive, and economically viable. Without machines like the Volvo BM SM868 quietly doing the hard work, the modern cut-to-length system might not have gained acceptance as quickly as it did. Number 10. Timberjack RW30. Early harvester. The Timberjack RW30 represents one of the most important transitional machines in mechanized forestry. A bridge between experimental harvesting concepts of the 1970s and the commercially successful harvesters of the late 90s. While developed in the late 1970s, the RW30 and similar early Timberjack harvesters continued to influence operations and design thinking into the early 90s. At a time when chainsaws still dominated felling, the RW30 explored the concept of single-operator harvesting using a crane-mounted cutting and processing head. This was not yet the refined single-grip harvester familiar today, but it demonstrated the feasibility of mechanized felling, delimbing, and bucking performed by one operator from a protected cab. The RW30 was mechanically crude by modern standards. Hydraulics were slow, head control was imprecise, and productivity was inconsistent. However, its importance lies in experimentation rather than efficiency. Timberjack used machines like the RW30 to study operator workflow, crane geometry, and processing mechanics under real-world conditions. Operators who ran the RW30 often had mixed experiences. While it reduced physical strain compared to chainsaw work, breakdowns were common and maintenance demands were high. Still, for many contractors, it offered a glimpse of the future, one where harvesting could be done faster and more safely with fewer workers on the ground. The RW30 never achieved widespread commercial success. As Timberjack refined its designs, later harvesters replaced early models quickly. Many RW30 units were scrapped, converted, or dismantled for parts, leaving few physical traces today. Yet its legacy is profound. The RW30 helped validate the single-grip harvester concept, paving the way for the machines that would dominate forestry by the 1990s. It stands as a reminder that progress often comes from imperfect prototypes that push boundaries before refinement arrives. In the history of forest machines, the Timberjack RW30 deserves recognition not as a success story, but as a necessary stepping stone toward modern mechanized harvesting. So that's it for today. If you like this video, then please hit the like and subscribe button for more videos. Thanks for watching.